A school hallway, silent and empty. The usual rush of voices and laughter is gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. A backpack sits on the cold tile floor, its zipper slightly open, revealing notebooks that will never be used again. A pair of sneakers lie nearby, their laces untied as if someone had left in a hurry. But no one is running. No one is laughing. Just hours ago, this hallway was full of life. Students moving from class to class, exchanging glances, sharing secrets, making plans for the weekend. And among them was Ethan Wells, a 16-year-old who never ignored someone in need. That day started like any other, a routine morning, a familiar walk to school. But by the end of it, everything would be different. Ethan always believed in standing up for what was right. He had seen Samiya Khan, his close friend, face cruel words before. He had heard the whispers, the comments made just loud enough to hurt. And each time, he had made a choice to speak up, to protect. But this time was different. This time, Ethan's voice wouldn't just be met with anger. It would set off a chain of events that would lead to an unimaginable outcome. A moment of courage, a devastating consequence, a story that must be told. Before we continue, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories. Now, let's get into it. Ethan Wells was the kind of person everyone felt safe around. 16 years old, sharp-witted, always smiling, a presence that filled a room with warmth. He wasn't the loudest in the group, nor the one constantly seeking attention, but people noticed him because he cared. Growing up in a quiet suburban neighborhood, Ethan was raised in a home where kindness wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. His mother, a dedicated nurse, spent her days caring for others, while his father, a history teacher, always taught him to stand up for what was right. He had a younger sister who looked up to him, watching closely as he navigated the world with a sense of fairness that even adults struggled to maintain. But high school was different. Doing the right thing wasn't always easy. That's where Samiya Khan came in. 15 years old, quiet, intelligent, always keeping to herself. She had transferred to the school 2 years ago, and while she wasn't exactly an outcast, she wasn't popular either. Her hijab made her stand out, and some people used that as an excuse to treat her differently. Ethan met Samiya during a group project in history class. At first, their conversations were casual, just about schoolwork and deadlines. But over time, their friendship grew. Ethan admired how devoted she was to her faith, how she prayed during lunch breaks and fasted during Ramadan. He had never met someone so disciplined, and he respected her deeply for it. One day, he surprised her by telling her he wanted to fast with her, just for a day, to understand what it was like. Samiya had laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but Ethan was serious. He wanted to experience it, not just observe. And so, during Ramadan, he went an entire day without food or water, sitting beside her at lunch while their classmates ate. That moment cemented their friendship. But not everyone saw it that way. It started subtly, snide remarks, whispers behind Samiya's back. Some students in their grade found amusement in making comments when she walked by, mocking her hijab or calling her names they never dared to say loud enough for a teacher to hear. Samiya never reacted. She kept her head down, ignored the words, and moved on. Ethan couldn't do the same. One afternoon, he overheard a group of students talking about Samiya, laughing as they made cruel jokes about her. His stomach tightened, his hands clenched into fists, and before he even thought about it, he was in front of them. "That's enough." The laughter stopped. All eyes were on him now. For the first time, the bullies saw Ethan, not as a bystander, not as just another student, but as a problem. And from that moment on, The target on Samiya's back became his too. At first, it was whispers. Snide remarks muttered under breath, quick glances shared between students when Samiya walked by. The kind of cruelty that wasn't loud enough to draw attention but was sharp enough to cut. But Tyler Mackenzie was different. He didn't bother hiding it. It started in the classroom. A history lesson on different cultures turned into an opportunity for Tyler to mock Samiya's hijab. His voice was loud, confident, like he wanted others to join in. Ethan didn't hesitate. He shut it down, making it clear that Tyler's words weren't funny. The room fell silent for a moment. Tyler's smug expression wavered. No one had ever challenged him like that before. But instead of stopping, it fueled him. The next time, it was in the hallway, a crowded space where teachers were too distracted to notice. Tyler and his friends blocked Samiya's way, throwing insults, laughing when she tried to push past. Ethan stepped in again, but this time words weren't enough. Tyler shoved him, hard. The weight of the impact sent Ethan stumbling back, his shoulder slamming into the lockers. For a second, the hall went silent. Students nearby froze, waiting to see what would happen next. Before Ethan could react, a teacher finally stepped in. But there were no real consequences, no detention, no suspension. Just a stern warning and a forced apology that meant nothing. Tyler walked away with a smirk. He had tested the limits, and now he knew. He could get away with it. That night, Samiya found Ethan sitting outside on the steps of the school. His expression was unreadable, a mix of frustration and exhaustion. She pleaded with him to stop getting involved, to let it go. But Ethan couldn't. That wasn't who he was. The final warning came the next morning. A note slipped into his locker, unsigned. The words were simple, but the message was clear. Stay out of it. It wasn't a request, it was a threat. Ethan crumpled the paper in his fist. He should have been scared. Maybe he was, but fear wasn't going to stop him. The house was silent, but Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the past few days. Every insult, every shove, every time he saw Samiya look down instead of meeting their eyes. The frustration built inside him, tightening his chest. He sat up, reached for his journal, and flipped to an empty page. The pen felt heavy in his hand. After a long pause, he started writing. The words came in short, deliberate strokes, sharp thoughts carved onto the page. He underlined a sentence twice, pressing down harder than necessary. His phone screen lit up beside him. Samiya's name. Another message. Another reminder that the bullying wasn't stopping. Ethan stared at the words. A long silence filled the room as he considered what to say. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt like enough. He set the phone aside without responding. A decision settled in his mind. Tomorrow, he would stop avoiding Tyler. Tomorrow, he would make it clear that enough was enough. He turned off his light and lay back down, but the feeling didn't go away. His heart was still racing. There was no way to know how far things would go, and no way to know that this would be the last night he would ever spend in his room. The cafeteria was crowded, filled with voices, laughter, and the clatter of trays. Students moved between tables, chatting about weekend plans, homework, and everything in between. Near the back of the room, the atmosphere was different, tense, uncomfortable. A small group had gathered, forming a half circle against the wall. Samiya stood at the center, her back pressed against the cold tile. Tyler's voice cut through the noise, low and mocking. His friends smirked, blocking her in, their voices filled with amusement at her discomfort. Ethan noticed immediately. His hands clenched at his sides as he walked forward, his heart pounding in his ears. He pushed through the crowd until he reached them. Without hesitation, he stepped between Samiya and Tyler, his stance firm. The room felt smaller, the air charged with something electric. Tyler didn't back down. Instead, he grinned, enjoying the challenge. The amusement in his eyes turned to something colder. A push, quick, aggressive, meant to provoke. Ethan stumbled but didn't step away. Another shove. Harder this time. The crowd around them grew. Some watched in silence. Others whispered. No one stepped in. Then the first blow landed. Ethan staggered. The impact knocked the breath from his lungs. Another strike followed. Quick, brutal, unrelenting. The room blurred around him. His legs buckled. The floor rushed up to meet him. His head struck the ground with a sickening force. For the first time, the cafeteria was silent. Tyler took a step back, his chest rising and falling with adrenaline. The realization of what had just happened flickered across his face. Then, without a word, he turned and ran. His friends hesitated before following. Samiya dropped to her knees beside Ethan, shaking, her hands hovering over him as if afraid to touch him. Her voice cracked, calling for help, but the world around her felt frozen. The cameras had captured everything. But for Ethan, none of it mattered anymore. The school, once filled with routine and noise, had transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape stretched across the cafeteria doors. Officers moved methodically, their radios murmuring in clipped tones. Students stood in small clusters, their faces pale, their voices hushed. The weight of what had happened settled over them like a dense fog. Inside, investigators pieced together the events. Security footage was reviewed. Witnesses were pulled aside. Each student recounted the moment Ethan collapsed, their words tinged with shock and fear. Samiya sat with an officer, her hands trembling in her lap. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held the weight of what she had seen. Tyler was taken into custody. The moment handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he shook his head, his words sharp, insistent. He hadn't meant for this to happen. It wasn't his fault. The news spread quickly, reaching beyond the school, beyond the town. Outrage poured in from all directions. Ethan's name flooded social media. Strangers lit candles outside his home, leaving notes, flowers, and messages of sorrow. His classmates organized a vigil, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candlelight as they whispered his name into the night air. Then came the discovery. A teacher sorting through Ethan's locker found his journal. The final entry, written just hours before the confrontation, sent chills through those who read it. The words were simple but powerful, a belief he had carried with him until the very end. The trial that followed was tense. Tyler's defense argued that it was an accident, that he never intended to hurt anyone. But the footage spoke louder than his words. The jury deliberated, and the verdict was read. Manslaughter. The courtroom remained silent for several moments, the weight of justice settling over those who had waited for this moment. But for Ethan's family, for Samiya, for the people who had loved him, nothing could undo what had been lost. The sentence was handed down. Tyler's expression didn't change. He only stared ahead, the reality of his future sinking in. But outside the courtroom, in the streets filled with candles and posters, in the quiet whispers of those who remembered Ethan's kindness, one thing was certain: his story would not be forgotten. Ethan Wells is gone, but his story refuses to fade. His final stand wasn't just about defending a friend. It was about standing against something much larger: hatred, ignorance, silence, the things that creep into hallways and classrooms, growing stronger when no one speaks out. In the days after his passing, candlelight vigils painted the streets with grief. People spoke his name, shared his story, promised never to forget. But promises are easy in moments of mourning. The real test comes later, when no one is watching. How many times have people looked away when someone was being mocked or harassed? How many times have they justified it? It's not my problem. They'll be fine. It's just a joke. Ethan refused to look away. He refused to stay quiet. And because of that, he paid the ultimate price. His final words in his journal are a chilling reminder of what silence can cost. Doing what's right isn't always easy, but silence is worse. What would you have done in his place? Would you have spoken up, knowing the risks? Or would you have stayed silent, hoping someone else would step in? Ethan made his choice. Now, the question is, what will you do the next time you see injustice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories that need to be told.